Welcome one and all to this 12-week year group coaching live. And today is Thursday, and we have covered a lot of topics which include ikigai, passions, visions, the why of life, time management, uh, to name a few. A lot of matrices that we have gone into. So today we're going to actually take it to a different level. We've done mutual trust and respect many weeks ago, and we briefly did a round of meditation. But today we thought of doing something called as the Joyful Quotient. And this incidentally is also the name of my book, which was released recently across 12 marketplaces on Amazon Kindle. Exactly the same name, The Joyful Quotient. So there are 10 questions, which is given somewhere in the middle of the book. And I'm actually going to run those questions now in the way it should be run. And these questions are primarily questions which can help you do a self-analysis of the level of joy that we have in our lives. And I request all of you to answer these questions truthfully as you go through. These are psychometric tools, and each question is quite powerful. So the rules are very simple. You're going to kind of write 0 if it never happens, write 10 if it always happens, and write something in between if it happens, somewhat in between. So just let me, just a minute. Perfect. So let's start with the first question. And the question is very simple. It's the most simple of the questions. I speak the truth. Very powerful question. And write 0 if it never happens. Write 10 if it always happens. Write somewhere in between 3, 4, 5, 6 if it happens somewhat in between. And we must understand that this, of course, this question, please answer truthfully, okay, in various senses. It's not necessary that we speak the truth all the time. So that's also important. Let's not be idealistic in nature. Go rewind your life and just see in terms of, truthfully, how many times do you really speak the truth? And that leads us on to the second question. And the second question is, or the statement is, I daydream. And again, write 0 if it never happens. That is, you never daydream. Write 10 if you always daydream. You're always in a daydreaming format. And again, write somewhere in between if you feel you're writing, you're somewhat daydreaming, maybe a few hours a day, or half a day, or maybe few minutes every few hours, whatever is the case. So go ahead, put a figure from 0 to 10. That leads us on to the third question. And the third question is, I get mood swings. So again, very self-explanatory. Write 0 if you really never get mood swings. Write 10 if you're always vacillating between anger and happiness and depression and ecstasy and happiness and mood swings, all the kind of things. So again, any range between 0 and 10. And then we'll kind of evaluate how we can take it from here. So the next question, number 4, is I keep fantasizing about my future. So what this really means is, do you keep dreaming about yourself in an alternate reality? Okay, that's what it really means. I keep fantasizing about a future, how it should be, how things would be tomorrow, day after, or next year, etc., etc. Again, write 0 if it never happens, 10 if it keeps happening, and somewhere in between, whatever be the case. And that leads us on to question 5, which is, I wish to change my immediate past. What this really means is that do you really want to change something which just happened a few minutes ago? For example, let's say you buy something, maybe a mobile or a pen or whatever it is. The moment you buy it, you start kind of doubting. Should I have bought this, or should I have bought a different color, or should I have bought it from a different shop? So, it's, write 10 if it keeps happening all the time. Write 0 if it never happens, which means you just move on. You don't really want to change anything of your immediate past. And that leads us intuitively to the next question, which, as some of you should have guessed, is that I wish to change my entire past. And there are many of us, who at various points of time want to start off on a fresh slate. We just want to let go of everything that's happened and begin afresh. And it's important to truthfully analyze, whether at this point of time are we looking at changing our entire past. And it's fine if it is, but just you need to record and document it, as whatever number. And well, if of course you don't want to change your entire past, then you can put a 0, and life moves on to question 7, which is self-explanatory and quite open with this particular figure. And again, very powerful question. I always feel, why me? And this is sometimes hidden in the subconscious. We keep asking this question at various intervals in our life, in our daytime, various events. Why did it have to be me who had this accident? Why was it me who lost his job? Why is it me who's going through this particular crisis? So why me? Why me? Why me? If this question keeps recurring in your mind, and again, go back truthfully in the last year or so, introspect, take your time. And if this is really occurring again and again and again, put a 10, put a 9, 10, 8, 9, 10. If it's not occurring at all, which means you're completely uh, blameless in some sense or the other to yourself, put a 0 or a 1. And on to number 8. And number 8, as the image shows, is I love to argue. And so beautiful. At times, there are phases in our life, or there are people who just love to argue for argument's sake. And it's very interesting how we just love to argue. So I will actually analyze this later, why it happens. So write, again 0 in case it never happens. Write 10 if it happens a lot, and again somewhere in between. So that puts us on to number 9. And question number 9 is I love to criticize behind people's backs. So take a few seconds, moments to kind of analyze your life. Have you ever criticized behind their backs? And again, the answer only for you, because nobody is going to see it. So write a 10 if it happens quite frequently, or 8 or 7 or 6 or 5. You can go all the way to 0 if it just doesn't happen at all. So remember that one person you need to be truthful to in this particular exercise is you yourself. So that's extremely important that we are truthful. Also, in this final statement or question, that I love to sting and cut relationships. And again, write 0 if it never happens. Write 10 if it happens very frequently, and somewhere in between. So now let's try to analyze each of them. What exactly do they denote? And it's pretty interesting how you would rate ourselves and how each question has a lot of depth in them. The first one is quite simple, and of course, if you've written somewhere in the range of 7, 8, 9, 10, it's ideal scenario. There are times when you need to not tell the truth. maybe a loved one is suffering from a rare disease. Now, would you want to tell him that you have 3 days to live, or would you just want him to enjoy the next 3 days of his life or her life? So there are times when it is not good to tell the truth. So, in fact, I'd like to actually take this off into the Indian philosophy of Ashtanga Yoga, and of which the first of these Ashtanga is eight steps of yoga. And the first step of yoga is something called as Yama. And Yama is to kill all the negative tendencies that are there in us. And the first of these negative tendencies, that are there, is not to hurt, you know, not to hurt people. And the second one is Satya, which is to speak the truth. So remember, these are all steps, which climb upward. And not to hurt comes foremost, first and foremost. Not to hurt any creature, not to hurt any person. And the second one is truth. So if the first is not fulfilled, then this doesn't have any basis. So it's as long as the first needs to be fulfilled, only then you can go to the next. So that leads us on to second question. Of course, if you are between 0 and 2, it's a robotic life that you're leading. If it's yeah, because a 0 to 2 would mean a person who does not daydream at all is as good as a robot, machine. It's human nature to dream a little bit, and so 3 to 5 is an ideal scenario. But if you've crossed 5 and you're at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it means you're not in the present moment. You're always, in a different. You've created an alternate planet for yourself, and we are, kind of living in a Pandora somewhere out in space. So the third one is mood swings. Of course, 0 to 2 is a real high ideal, but of course, a bit of a robotic scenario is there. 3 to 5 is normal human, and if you are 6 and above, so that's where the challenge is. You need to really calm yourself down. This is a self-analysis. We all know how we are. So if we think we are having huge mood swings, 6 and above, we need to calm ourselves down. That's critical. So immediate future is, again, 0 to 2 is a robotic. 3 to 5 is human because we do keep, thinking, evaluating. But if you're living, a 6 and above, it's living in the illusory world. You're living in a world which is, an illusion. You're always fantasizing about a future. You've created an alternate world, and you're living in it. The immediate past follows the same trend. 0 to 2 is ideal. 3 to 5 is a typical human nature. And 6 to 10 is a confused existence, which means you're always confusing what are you doing. There's nothing that you're doing which is with a lot of conviction and confidence. There's an element of confusion always existing. So this is powerful if you're really looking at eradicating all of your past. Now, there's one thing that we can't change in our life, and that's the past. So if by any chance you are at a grade of 6 and above in this particular statement, it means there is a need to accept your past and make peace with it as early as possible. Else, this can lead to a very negative situation. So this is extremely important to embrace your past. It's very simple. You just need to give a suggestion, a thought. You need to relive your past, through various techniques, and ensure that you embrace it as early as possible. Why me? Now, uh, this is quite normal. A lot of people go through this. It's not as dangerous as the previous one, but nevertheless, if you need to live a joyful life, this particular question has to slowly but surely move out of our lives. And we should believe that everything that happens for the best. So that's a statement that we need to believe in. So that will lead to a better acceptance of ourselves. Argument. So people who argue a lot are those who lack self-confidence. So if you are somebody who keeps arguing for argument's sake, it means there is something lacking in you which you're trying to make up with this constant argument. It's a psychological, kind of phenomenon, a psychological example of people who just argue, and it means there's a lot of lack of self confidence in them. So you need to build up on it, and slowly when you stop arguing, actually the confidence also starts building yourself. You get more and more silent. Criticize follows the same route, a lack of self confidence. And the last one, which is stinging, is a lack of empathy. So these are, my friends, the key questions that were built by a team of professionals at the IIM, and very powerful questions. I suggest you go through these questions once in a while, every few months, and it's fine if the answers are not what you want it to be, which means that the answers are very high and six and above. But the very fact that you have done a self-analysis is half the work done, because our inner being somehow needs to know where we need to go. So we just need to create an awareness that there are these things lacking in me, and that itself form a basis of self-healing. A lot of these things can be done through, of course, acceptance, which some of the questions are accepting your past or accepting the current situation. Accepting the fact that you have these flaws in us also is a very powerful tool to let go of it. So I also run the program called Healify, which focuses a lot on past life regression, inner child healing. And if any of you are interested, do reach out to me. We will get things back on track. So with that, I'll be coming to an end of this particular program. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Looking forward to hear your comments and see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.